Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to Lucha-Masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at Lucha-Masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
So this is the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, Central.com, your weekly source of Lucha news. How was your week, Brendan?
Oh, my week has been going all right. Lots of sunshine up here in Seattle. So even though I'm mostly working indoors and going between the apartment and indoors, I'm able to get a little sunshine. And everybody seems to be in a better mood this week. So everything, lots of fun happening.
Oh, that's awesome. We've had good weather here, too. It was a little rainy over the weekend. We got 5 inches of rain in one day, in like 2 hours in one day.
Goodness.
Yeah, but other than that, it's real nice weather and really agreeable. A little humid, but Kansas is always kind of humid this time of year, right around the 4th of July. And
yeah.
But it's, I don't know, some people like it, some people don't. In Arizona, it's so dry that you don't get the same, like a healthy sweat going, and so it feels different to me than the humidity does. But I'm kind of used to it now, I guess. Is it pretty humid up there? I know it's wet up there, but I don't know if it gets warm enough to get that humid.
Well, right here in Seattle, we're right next to the Puget Sound, so the humidity is always pretty good.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, sunshine and water, just like San Diego or anywhere else on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we have Miranda. So how is your weather and holiday shaping up? Well, we'll try it again.
We'll see what we can do about getting Miranda back, but let's head to our segment about the road back to shows. Brendan, what do you have to add? I think you've got the stories this week.
Well, I did what I could on that. Fans, I just want to point out this is what happens when the anchor goes away. We all fall apart, and we're trying to figure out what to do. So, Miranda, hurry back. We miss you already. First off, the biggest news, which is also the most awkward and confusing news, is that Mexico is going to orange. Mexico City is going to orange, kind of. It really seems to be like a sort of concession where they, instead of being at a full red like they were before, they are at this not red, not orange. They technically won't be able to allow any sort of sporting event under this version of orange, but you can go out in public if you're wearing a mask and get your hair cut and all those other things that the citizenry seems to demand that you be able to do every now and again in many countries here. So, I don't know, kind of a weird position. It does mean we're a little closer to shows, but it also means that the government is being understandably cautious.
Yeah, I think that it's just an undefinable thing, and so everybody's reluctant to give a timeline, but nobody really knows how to describe it. I mean, I think we're kind of in between. I guess at a rough orange in my area here, and so you know what I mean? Like, yeah. That's kind of where we're at, and there's a mask, like a statewide mask order. But public transportation is such a big deal in Mexico City compared to other places.
Oh, yeah. Well, as I've mentioned before, everybody I know who's lived in Mexico City, that's the only way they can adequately get around. Like, sure, you drive to a thing now and again, but usually you're taking, if you have an apartment and you're going to work or you're going to Arena, Mexico, you're taking the bus somewhere or the train somewhere, and then you're walking. And then that's so that, I mean, it's just a natural state of life. And based on everything I've heard about the neighborhood around Arena Mexico, I couldn't imagine parking there if you were going there 4 days a week. So
yeah, especially on the weekends like that.
Well, the weekends especially. You want the fans to have whatever limited parking there is, because there are fans that are driving from much further away. You can't take the bus if you're going to Mexico City for the weekend from one of those country towns. So, it's an interesting thing, and the public health seems to be the big concern, which is the good news. You did mention that some people don't seem to be willing to fit to a timeline. However, there was also a nice little story this week about Satillo, a smaller area, saying that they are hoping to have Lucha Libre shows in September. They will be empty arena shows. There was a nice little article about it. It was kind of to try and get people a little hyped up.
That's exciting.
It is kind of exciting that someone to that point is willing to say, we're willing to have a show, and we're gonna tell you when it's gonna happen, and we're working out the logistics of how we're gonna get that into the hands of fans right now, which I think is really fun.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
I was curious about that mentality of promotion, being, I think, more hesitant to announce things, being so unsure as to when they're able to put shows on, and even announcing something and then probably having to cancel it. Is that what you believe? Why, on top of probably some of the others happening, is that, do you think, a big hesitation in announcing a show and then maybe having to cancel or change it, as to why there's a hesitation for maybe smaller promotions in announcing future events?
Absolutely. You run into a bigger issue where if you pre-sell tickets or you put up any hype for a smaller show, and then there's problems getting money back into the purchasers of tickets after all that because you had to cancel, then you are risking losing the fans, losing trust in your organization, and that money when nobody's able to work or not everyone's able to work is very important. So that 100 pesos is, if you can't get that back, that's something that you might have needed. That faith will definitely be gone. I'm experiencing that with the indies right now. Like Brown Paper Tickets is a wonderful company in a lot of ways for indie shows, but they were never ever designed to do mass refunds. And so I have seen the frustration on many fans emails and posts about not getting their refund, which is clearly related to the fact that they were really hoping to get that money in their pocket. So,
yeah.
We had a few more. I mean, the news this cycle was not really a lot of good. WWE has had some more issues, as we touched on. They had several people, front of the camera, back of the camera, that had tested positive. Some news sources have got a little they accidentally overshared and put some names out there that were incorrect. So we're definitely going to be careful with mentioning names on that, because we don't want anyone to feel slighted by that. But in that note as well, WWE has been preventing talent in particular from mentioning if they've tested positive on social media, because they are trying to control that news getting out to the family and the people of contact, and the contact tracing, I believe is what it's called, so they want to make sure that they are able to get in touch with everybody before the general public finds out, and somebody who may or may not have been exposed gets into a panic and starts making some awkward phone calls. That's a weird thing for me. I think that the WWE, in that respect, that's a responsible thing to do. But it's
and you
weird.
Can kind of imagine it's a PR nightmare as well. I mean, even just those who have released their status, like there was some more on-air talent that were able to reveal their COVID status, like Renee Young and Kayla Braxton. And even that, there's a lot of backlash. There's even more people who announce that. I mean, that's just a PR nightmare. So that's That's what it sounds like to me. But I think also what you're saying, too, being more responsible about that, kind of backtracking who all those people they could have been in contact with and things like that. I mean, it's important for everyone to keep that in mind or to have that, but especially those talent. But and that's just my opinion. I think it's a PR thing that they're just trying to avoid getting that backlash they have. An amount of in-ring talent that may have tested positive.
There's always a PR element to it. I'm not gonna even pretend that there's not, but that is what they are putting forward. They're trying to be responsive, and on those terms, I accept it. But also, it sounds to me like they are trying to keep control of the news cycle and the spin and not get hit with just a flood of unhappy email and face even more of a ratings crisis if people tune out because they are not comfortable with the way the product has been handled. And by the product, I mean all of wrestling. People are not products.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone is getting ready to send me an angry email. I mean all of the packaging for wrestling, which includes your front of house, back of house people, your Renee Young and commentators, as well as the performers, and then the venue itself. As we've seen with other preparations like AAA, they need to have time to adequately manage that too. All right, so we have to catch up on one other thing. Last week, this was beginning, and the announcement was made, but it didn't make it into the news cycle. The Lucha-inspired promotion out of the Midwest, Chikara Pro, had to close down as well, largely due to no income, although everyone will of course be looking at some of the other events that have been happening in wrestling as contributing to that largely as well. I am hoping that something is able to come out of the group of talent that made up Chikara Pro in the near future, but officially they have closed their doors. The school is closed, and we will not be seeing a King of Trios tournament in this year or next year.
I wonder, surely somebody will pick up the King of Trios tournament when things pick up again, as far as, the public being allowed in venues, because that was such a cool and unique format to see some amazing matches.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a very unique format, and I certainly will be watching some of that product in the upcoming couple of weeks just to relive some of those great memories. But it's all speculation at that point. Like there was a company that owned that name, that owned the concept. They're not going to be there anymore.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah, that was going to be my next question is what rights do they still have over the concept, and does that get tricky legally if another company wanted to pick it up? I'm sure the most business savvy to try and get in contact with Chikara and come up with an amicable way to pick it up. But also it is, also possible for a person to just try and pick it up. But I'm sure you'd have to think about the legal implications of that. If Chikara did, which I would imagine there's probably trademark copyright related to the tournament that makes it a little bit trickier.
Yeah, I don't know for sure how well legally protected that was. I'm going to assume it was reasonably well protected because they were broadcasting on internet pay-per-view. So there has to be a certain amount of protection they were putting in there, but that's all speculation. If they do own it, that is money that they can make by selling. Whoever it is can sell that off to someone as their liquidating resources. So that may be a thing that a clever entrepreneur could do. And then I have a couple of other big kind of decent things here. There is in the future, I don't have the date in front of me right now. There's going to be a women's tournament that's being held by Mass Lucha. This will be the ladies' version of the 16-man tournament that they were doing. This is, I believe, going to be an empty arena show. They have announced 8 names so far. The speculation is that will only names, but these were all coming out over the course of last week. So we have some pretty good names for this. Ayako Hamada, Dulce Sexy, Ludark Shaitan, Zuxis Lolita, Diosa Quetzal, Reina Dorada, and Baby. I have done what I can to find out. I mean, many of our listeners will automatically know, like Hamada and Dulce Sexy and Zuxis. The others apparently, and from the people that I've spoken to, are very big names on the independent right now. I've seen a few of them in the Chaos pay-per-views we've been covering, and as well as I believe DTU had a couple of them, and IWRG apparently has had many of them. I need to go back and find that. So the level of competition will be really high, and 8 people seems to be a good number to have a high number of quality matches while still having kind of a smaller arena feel and the social distancing guidelines that may be.
Yeah, that sounds like a very cool opportunity, not only for all these women, but just for fans who think, women will be very welcomed.
Well, and Lucha. These, I mean, Dulce Sexy, Sexy Star, however you want to say it, Hamada and Zuxis are all kind of transcendent performers. They don't ever want to say that they are the best women's entertainers, one of the best lucha entertainers that that you can see. So, I mean, if you are missing solid lucha storylines with lots of variety of styles, you have 8 people that can go very, like Ludark Shaitan is a hardcore wrestler. And
cool.
You have no idea, we have no idea if that means that we're going to see like her and Hamada going at it like Hamada did with Taya at AAA, or maybe one of the other younger ladies is going to step up and have a hardcore match with her during this tournament. Or maybe she shows us her technical side. There's all kinds of crazy combinations that could happen.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And it's such a stacked, big star power with the names. This is going to be I think this is going to be something that's inspirational to people in the future, and we see mentioned. I mean, I think this one has the potentiality to be one of the most memorable shows of the empty arena era.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking, is that if the show lives up to the potentials, that we will have a highly memorable show that will hopefully be talked about for years to come. In the good ways, and not in the do you remember that awful nightmare way. Everybody knows a show like that's been brought up. And that's an awkward transition, because I was going to bring up the DTU show. I thought the DTU in the Middle of the Desert show was good. By the way, it's up on YouTube in its entirety, which means we should be also having matches for it up on Lucha Central. But they are building up to another match on July 17th. And then the other reason this is kind of exciting is they've been announcing that they are in an alliance with Illinois-based promotion Guerreros Azteca. Now, when I was researching this, first off, when I'm trying to search it by that, it has the same initials as the German Federation, GWF. So I could find very limited information on it. However, it seems like, even though they're announced to be an Illinois promotion, I've only ever seen show footage out of Mexico and various states. So I have no idea what that means, if they're planning on bringing wrestlers across the border now that restrictions are a little lighter. There's a lot of information and exciting possibility that could happen out of this show.
I believe we've seen some of their guys in IWRG before, right?
Yeah.
Like their tag team guys, I think.
Yeah. They seem to be very focused on tag teams from what I could find. So, we have seen the tag team show up in other places. IWRG, definitely one of them. I'm not going to say right now because I couldn't find good notes to give accurate information. So I don't want to say something that's going to get me more angry emails. I don't. And then the last one that I've got, which is again back to the whole conversation about timelines, is there was an interview that was translated with Hijo to Dr. Wagner Jr., where he talked about he was expected to go back to Japan before all of this, he was scheduled to be in Japan right now. And obviously that's not happening, but he's still saying that they're talking to about having him come over and do shows in September. So Japan and Mexico seem to have some sort of understanding about a reasonable timeline towards the fall that could potentially happen. And obviously they're not saying this in major press announcements, but he said it in an interview, so he feels fairly confident about it. And obviously, the people in NOAH obviously are confident enough to offer him work at that time. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I mean, especially for us as fans. Like, I, don't want to be, impatient, but I would, he's such an exciting wrestler that I'd love to see him again. It's exciting.
Well, you should definitely be watching the Chaos shows then, because he is their tag team champions on the pay-per-view that we'll be talking about.
Oh, excellent. So, yeah, I'll definitely have to check that
out. Speaking of that, I'm just going to roll right into the Indie Roundup, because that was a nice little transition that I did accidentally on purpose. As I mentioned earlier, the DTU Rant Show is up on YouTube. We also had the Chaos Show. So we got 3 matches this time. We will be getting 4 more on Sunday. I am realizing now that I didn't write down what the 4 are going to be, but I'll tell you what I saw. We had Diosa, Quetzal, Baby Love, and Origin, a 6-person match against Puma de Oro, Lady Puma, and Hamada. This was very much a story of the young up-and-comers team with Diosa, Quetzal, Baby Love, and Origin against a slightly more experienced team with Ioka Hamada and Puma de Oro over there. You had high, you had high flying, you had some dives. There wasn't a lot of rule breaking in this one. Nobody was acting very low, but there was always a little bit. If you can get away with it, the referees looking the wrong way, you might. But in the end, the younger team, Diosa, Quetzal, Baby Love, and Origin, will pull out and they've been very excited about that. And then you had a little backstage segment with Daga talking with Volador C. Now, again, my Spanish is notoriously not good, but Volador Sr. seemed to be getting upset with a cocky Daga. I think we might be building towards them having some sort of confrontation in this.
That's exciting. I'm always excited to see Volador.
And then to the tag team match, we had Galeno Del Mal and Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. versus Charo Negra and Oro Negro for tag team championships. This one was a little more chaotic. The Wagner boys are always a little more willing to bend the rules. I don't know where they would get that from. Certainly not from their father at all.
As we say in Spanish, no me digas. Don't no me digas. Never. Sorry.
That was very much the story of the match. They were much more willing to cheat. They were cocky and posing, and the young guys were definitely trying to come up from underneath and get a big win. But the Wagner boys pulled it out in the end. There was some cheating that was involved at that point, but I didn't actually have that in my notes. I was having some technical difficulties during this match. And then the last match of the evening was Devo versus Dark Escoria. They were brawling. The setup seemed about the fact that these two genuinely aren't liking each other. This was not a lucha match. This was a brawl. And Devo came out on top here, but there was, again, I didn't get all of it, but there was I kept hearing the word apuestas when they were being interviewed, and it sounds like they are building up towards maybe a hair versus hair match in the upcoming week.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Love apuestas matches. People just, it's the psychology of them, and, like the way they wrestle when there's something on the line, like it's just incredible. I love it. It's a chance to see some of the most exciting work from your favorite wrestlers. Like, that's when they really pull out all the stops.
Well, I mean, to some of the things we've talked about, when there's something, even the title, when there's something at stake. There's already like a raised level at the buy-in. Like I love watching 6 really talented wrestlers because the 3-on-3 is kind of the popular thing in Lucha. I love watching that, and I love being able to pull what mini stories I can out of that, and of course all the crazy flips and no tag madness that'll happen. But if there is anything at all on somebody's hair, somebody's girlfriend is going to leave them, the legitimate story that's happened. Any of that sort of thing, it adds something, because now I really want to see how that works out. I want to see how that pays off. And so even though I don't know what the background is, why Devo and Escoria don't get, I mean, again, I have an idea because I've seen Dark Escoria in AAA, and he's also not known for being the nicest and most rule-abiding of people. But so I can speculate. But I'm more invested. I'll be more invested in that match when there's something on the line. I'll just want to see how that plays out. But that was what we got. We got those 3 matches. We got the build-up for this week, which because I bought last week's, I will be able to watch. So I will have more results on Chaos this week. Apparently, we are the only ones covering the Chaos results right now. Even luchacentral.com was a little slow on picking up the results. So Lucha Central Weekly is here for you on the Chaos shows, folks.
You heard it here first, folks. Brendan Barr, newsbreaker.
Brendan Barr, he is our resident chaos expert, pretty much the resident chaos expert for luchacentral.com at this point, since he is ahead of the news from the website. But the website is much more of the events news that are happening around Lucha Libre. You can find at luchacentral.com. Thank you very much, Brendan, for both the Road Back to shows and the Roundup. Now we're going to kick it off, Denise Salcedo, with this week's Lucha Central.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a look at all of the great shows available this week on the Lucha Central Podcast Network. In July, we'll debut our 4th monthly Monday series, so with no new show to kick off this week, now is your time to catch up on Lucha Libre Figures and Facts, episodes on Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero and Conan, the Mask Cast with Dos Hermanos Lucha, and their mask collection building tips and stories, and Business of the Business, including the latest episode with AEW star Colt Cabana. Tuesday, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem has never been afraid to tackle the issues and ask the tough questions. This week, the gang takes a look at women in wrestling, the speaking out movement, and the effect of Black Lives Matter on wrestling, as well as a deep dive rewind into Season 1, Episode 8 of Lucha Underground. Plus, La Mera herself, Thunder Rosa, drops in to discuss being the first female Mexican NWA champion, Lucha Underground, and starting an all-female performer and female-run wrestling promotion in Texas. Also on Tuesday, WrestleBots with Fabi Chulo, live covering pro wrestling and MMA from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific. This week, Fabi is joined by co-host and up-and-coming luchadora Zeta Gonzalez, and their guests include legendary SoCal luchador Superboy Torres and Lucha Underground's Ricky Mendel. Head to WrestleBossLive.com to listen live or download it Wednesday across podcast platforms. Wednesday nights, live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. This week on the show, the legendary Hugo Savinovich joins the table to talk about speaking out in Lucha Libre, Lucha in the time of the pandemic, and more. Watch live on Wednesday nights and then find the episode on your favorite podcast platform every weekend. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco. This week on the show, APW, XPW, and Lucha Underground alum Vinny Massaro pulls up to talk death matches, Lucha Underground, the independent wrestling scene, and training Cain Velasquez for his in-ring debut in AAA. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast. One in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all of the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. With empty arena matches in Mexico, the Lucha Brothers returning to action in AEW, Santos Escobar dominating in NXT, and Rey Mysterio feuding with Seth Rollins on Raw. End your week every Friday by getting all caught up in 90 minutes. Be sure to subscribe and follow all of your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms. And please be sure to give a rating and review to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
And once again, a big thank you to Denise Salcedo, who provides us this week, Lucha Central and I have Lucha Central. This week is stacked with podcasts from the podcast network. So many good interviews, so much good content. Everyone. So once you're done with this show, go ahead. Highly recommend a lot of the shows on the network. They're all different, entertaining. And you think, with all these podcasts out there, we may cover some of the same things, but very, very different perspectives, all of that. So you are true twice with those on Central Podcast Network. So do what she says. Go and subscribe, rate, leave us some feedback. Let us know what you're liking and let us know what you're not. But again, huge thank you to Salcedo and a big shout out to all of the podcasts on the Lucha Central Podcast Network.
I want to hear Hijo talk about where he's talking about some of the same stuff we are, and he's going to have a massively different take on it. So I'm really excited about that.
That is, I caught a glimpse of that earlier from Facebook. They had some clips of that, and really, really good. I really enjoyed that show. And it has Jerry Villagrana, who we interviewed last week. So, again, we are truly un gran familia. Yeah, we are one big family on luchacentral.com. So we all do our best to support each other, give each other shout-outs. And hey, we're all going to be on each other. So you know what? Just get used to it, everyone. So I want to segue into really the big news of this week in the world of professional wrestling, and we're going to tie this Libre. We do have a special edition of the Wednesday Wars, and it actually hasn't felt that much war in a while. We have, of course, a war in AEW and NXT every week. However, this is the first of week one of counter programs. Both companies have put out very similar structures of nights happening both this week and next week. AEW decided to break up what they had last year, the pay-per-view event, Fyter Fest, and they have broken that up into a 2-week event, Fyter Fest. And then NXT came along and said, hold my beer, and we're going to revive, and we're going to revive the Great American Bash, split that up in nights. So last night for us, ago for the listeners. Okay, no, it's a time war.
Peeking behind the curtain.
The Great Oz. We had night one of Fyter Fest and the Great American Bash, and our focus here at Weekly Podcast, we're going to be focused on who put the better content overall. First, we're going to be talking about what we have for week one, and then we'll preview week two and kind of give our thoughts, who is going to put the better Lucha content out next week as well. So we did a little divide and conquer this. I know that I watched a lot more P. You gentlemen were able to watch a little bit more of AEW, and by that, I was literally forth. I really had some war vibes this week. I was going back and forth. Because I really didn't want to miss anything. I was. Let's start with that. What was your anticipation for this Wednesday Night Wars? I'll let you go first.
When I looked at the cards in advance, I really thought AEW had the better card, so that's what I watched. And I didn't flip back and forth. They had a contest during the thing where you could win a call from Chris Jericho. I've been a Chris Jericho fan since the WCW days, so I had to try.
Fair enough. I would have done the same thing.
And they actually mentioned the ratings for MJF, when he came out for his match with Lucha Express, said, they were putting that on TV, and they were getting this kind of match, and they brought him out because they wanted to win the ratings war, and that's why you get MJF. And I mean, it was kind of interesting, I guess, but it was also one of those things I didn't like about WCW when they would cater too much to that kind of smart fan base. Sometimes it kind of stops your suspension of disbelief while you watch, and I wasn't a huge fan, but I thought the Lucha Express versus MJF and Wardlow match was amazing. It was a great match all around. From the instant that Lucha Express came out, before their entrance even, they came out, really quickly and assuredly to the ring. The pyro started when they were already kind of squaring up with MJF and Wardlow. They just looked so self-assured and so strong. Jericho compared Luchasaurus to Godzilla favorably several times during the match due to his look and size, which I thought was really cool, because for somebody like Jericho to say that, like, what he's feeling and seeing in the moment, you can kind of, I don't know, I just loved that. He also had a great moment where he yelled out, "Happy Canada Day," when Jungle Boy hit the Canadian Destroyer on MJF after he ran across Wardlow's and Luchasaurus' backs. Luchasaurus hit a standing moonsault to get the win on Wardlow. Like, the whole thing was so impressive. Like, this was really a cool match, and I loved this one. And so if you're into Lucha style, I think you would love this match. Like, it was just so good.
It was definitely the Lucha match of the night. There was another match that we will talk about in a second that had Lucha talent in it, but it had all of that feel, like we were talking about in the part. It had all the feel of the with all the wildness that a Lucha tag match can get.
It was great.
And I would say, I spoke about this offline to you guys earlier in the week, and I want to mention it because of the way that you described this match. Is I was debating as well, mainly because of MJF and Jungle Boy, and how much I enjoyed that match at Double or Nothing. And I feel like the athleticism that they have, and just how skilled they are, how talented they are. I think Brendan mentioned how people are going to look back at these gentlemen, and, in a few years, as their main talk about, watching, being in that kind of early mid-card of AEW. And I felt like a lot of people think about that fondly, too, about the WCW.
Exactly.
I felt like there was just so much analogy between that, and I feel like that is something that I believe we'll look fondly on MJF and Jungle Boy, especially, not only through their match at Double or Nothing, but this week. And people are really going to think about and look back at that as that aha moment, whether it's an inspiration for smaller wrestlers, the athleticism, all of that. There's a lot of parallels to how people describe them and how people describe the cruiserweight division.
Exactly. The dynamic actually reminded me a lot of the way, like, I didn't get to see many pay-per-views live back then, but I actually did get to see the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view at a friend's party that year when Rey Mysterio wrestled Eddie Guerrero, and I had the same feeling watching this match live. I was like, oh, people are going to be watching this. Like, this is a big deal. This is going to be something people remember. And like, it just had that important feel in a way.
Yeah. To the question you were asking a little earlier with the feel of and the anticipation on that, because I lived through the Monday Night Wars and watched that, and I would do the dial. Well, I had the luxury most of the time. I didn't have to dial flip, because here on the West Coast, I could get a live feed of Nitro and see the recorded.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes.
But,
ditto. Same
I had that feel, and then start off with that same style of match there. And to what you were talking about with the cruiserweight division, I very much, once you suggested that's how people might look at it, I went back and looked at it again, and man, it did have that feel of like a cruiserweight division match where they opened up the show with it. But that set the tone for the whole rest of the show. Like, thing that I watched from that match forward was compared against that match in my head, whether I meant to do it or not. And it's good stuff.
Oh, it's so good.
And real quick, Dustin, to talk about Chris Jericho on commentary, his style of commentary reminds me of his character from Southpaw Wrestling, Clint Bobsky. He uses the same exact tone. Watch it again. Listen to his commentary, and watch him play Clint Bobsky in Southpaw Wrestling. It's identical. And it's hilarious. It's really funny. Him on commentary is, for me, I enjoy that kind of commentary, being very silly.
I do too.
It's comical, but yeah, I was thinking, man, why is this familiar to me? Clint Bobsky all the way.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to check that out tonight. I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah,
it's so
please
funny.
do.
Yeah.
So, also happening at Fyter Fest, we had another tag team match. This night one of Fyter Fest was very tag team heavy. Of course, we had the tag team titles defended as the main event. But prior to that, we had Santana and Ortiz versus Private Party. And, anytime I can talk about Santana, I will. Again, another good job by them. They are a cornerstone of AEW. That is just what I'm going to continue
They really
to believe.
are.
But I was very excited to see Private Party. We haven't seen them very much recently on air, and now that they have Matt Hardy on their side, who is going to take them? But the Private Party winning, and now they, due to some changes that I'll mention in a second, they are now going to be heading to night 2 of Fyter Fest to take on Kenny Omega and Hangman Page for the tag team championships. So that also, there is some good move in the tag team division, but again, just good work again by Santana and Ortiz. I think that too, the fact that they are able to put over such a young team like Private Party and still be a threat. I personally don't think it does a lot to diminish their role as a tag team, but I'm interested in what you think, Brendan, as to, the fact that they're not winning. I kept talking about their ranking. They're number 5 in team division right now. Do you think that hurts them at all?
Well, actually, what they had said is they have not yet cracked the top 5, and I do feel like that is the problem. Like, I feel that a team like Proud and Powerful, if they're not in the top 5, they should be hovering around the top 5. They should be getting more wins somewhere. And I mean, they did look great against Private Party, and I can't fault the storytelling and the booking that happened on that night. I'm just it's very confusing that you have a team that is that good and could be the cornerstone of the division that is getting. Their role seems to be the senior statesmen of the tag division. Like, they are the people that are letting other tag teams have their moment. And I love that because, as we talked about when we were talking that whole segment about these guys, they can do it. They are in a position to do that, and that's fantastic. They can do that. But as far as storytelling goes, I would like to see them be better represented as a true force in the tag team division to back up that gatekeeper position.
I agree. It's a very good look for so long until they start losing their credibility as a threat, more than looked as just someone who can put other teams over. It's a fine line, and you're right. They haven't even cracked the top 5. So without even having a place in that, what is this for them? Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is a change to the card for night 2. It was announced yesterday that Jon Moxley is out. He's supposed to face Brian Cage next week. However, just earlier, the road back to shows, and people who know kind of the dynamic behind the scenes, Jon Moxley, young, they probably live together. I mean, usually what most couples do. And so with that, because she has had positive teens, he is likely in a situation where he is unable to travel and be there for the show next week. So they have pushed their fight to the following, which they have to Fight for the Fallen. So another pay-per-view that they had previously sounds like it's going to be turned to another event. And, I mean, does this hurt that championship picture, or does it add more to it? Dusty, what are your thoughts?
I feel like it adds more suspense to it, and I also feel like that Fight for the Fallen will kind of be built around that title match. That's going to kind of be the main course in the the thing that they really push with it. And so I think that it gives it kind of its own space to breathe and lets it be its own thing. I'm more excited than ever after seeing the little video package they did about how Jon Moxley couldn't do the underhooks because of Cage's muscular build, and that the momentum just didn't work that way and he wouldn't be able to do it. Like, I loved that. I mean, and so I'm more excited than ever personally. Like, I'm really excited, especially if they get to stretch out the match a little bit, give it some extra time on a special show. I mean, I am more excited than ever, and I think it really helps build the tension and the excitement and the anticipation for fans that they're not only going to get to see it, but going to get to see, you know, another pay-per-view for free on TV. It's really cool.
Yeah. I feel like it was it's an unfortunate development for us as the Lucha fans for this Wednesday Night War bit, because we are now denied seeing a main event match with Brian Cage in it. But you could not have planned this better, because the whole story they're developing with Brian Cage being an unstoppable force, and Moxley, how is Moxley going to come out and win this, and like the possibilities. So him coming off of sickness, which is how they can absolutely portray this if they want to, and coming out and fighting at Fight for the Fallen anyway, is going to make for a better story. And to Dusty's point, they can give it a little more time. It gives more time for the how is he going to win, how is he going to pull this out storyline to breathe and really make the anticipation for it grow, and then we can have a nice long match.
I agree. Yeah, it is a shame we have to wait a little bit long to see Brian Cage in action, but also that promo by Taz. I mean, having a mouthpiece like Taz for Brian Cage.
Oh my gosh, it's so perfect.
So it truly is leading more at the end every time I hear Taz talk, and I think it's a perfect combination because you have someone able to talk. So I absolutely with both of you on that. I do want to make a small note that we did have some lucha action during AEW Dark this week. Dark Fuego del Sol and Lowrider versus Butcher and the Blade. My question is more about having these matches on Dark and how they may eventually evolve to AEW Dynamite. They seem to be having some really fantastic matches at Dark, but it doesn't seem like those matches, they happen to be in its own world. And I don't know if that's just the sense that I get, and I don't agree. But
yeah, it does have that feel, definitely.
Yeah. Do you feel like there should be a stronger connection between the matches we see on Dark and have them connect a little stronger to Dynamite?
I personally, I kind of feel like they're going for like 80s WWF programming, where you would have a show like which was 99% someone crushing someone else. You would see Andre the Giant come out and beat up Corncob Jones in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that.
you would have, and I think that's the feel they're going for, is that the undercard is going to be about making the stars that you see on Dynamite look better, have a little more polish to them, maybe have a little more, since they like to put the stats underneath them when they walk out, maybe have a little more balanced stats instead of looking like poor Sammy Guevara does when he was 2-11, I think he was at one point.
Oh gosh, yes.
But I also would like to see a little of that carry over. Like last week, we saw Serpentico and Luther starting to build a storyline, and then we got hints of it at the main show. And I would like to see more of that. I'd like to see, even if it's just that little bit, where you just see them doing things backstage or in that live audience, where you can see a little more interact, because there's nothing better than having rooms to watch both shows. And as it stands right now, I feel like a lot of fans don't know what to make of Dark and are less sure that they want to watch it an extra 2 hours of programming every.
Agreed. I do agree on that note as well. That's why I mentioned I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect, and we're very unsure how that plays into the company as a whole. I do want to jump in very quickly, because there wasn't as much of a Lucha presence. So NXT took a different approach where they only announced the matches, and it's through, our assumption and from what we could tell on TV as well, that they're going to build some of the following into programming from night one. So as I mentioned, not a whole lot of Lucha content on night one. However, going to one of Brendan's favorite, Raquel Gonzalez, her girl Dakota Kai was part of the opening match of the four-way number one fatal four-way, so it was an elimination match. Raquel was actually banned by ringside. So Tegan Knox came to take advantage of that, and she was able to eliminate. As far as the eliminations go, Candice LeRae was eliminated first. She got eliminated by Mia Yim. Mia Yim was eliminated by Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai, Knox. Tegan Knox is now your new number one contender. But I feel like that is also a part of the story, that the fact that Raquel Gonzalez was not there to help Dakota Kai definitely hurt her in the end.
Yeah, I feel like that's still how they're branding it. They still want that feel of Dakota Kai being someone who is sneaky and underhanded and can't win without some sort of advantage, which usually is Raquel Gonzalez. Which it's great for fans of Raquel Gonzalez because she gets to come out looking a superstar. And
she comes out like a boss.
Yeah. Such a force in every match that it just absolutely cannot hurt her image at all to be in that position. And it works to make people want Dakota Kai to not win. So all of that works, and I feel like that will be the story as early as next week. It'll be very interesting. Like maybe we get a little backstage segment with the two of them snipping at each other. Maybe we get Raquel Gonzalez wrestling somebody to show her how it's done. That's what I'm hoping for, is we get her in a singles match against someone to illustrate who really is the force of that partnership.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
I believe that's what they're moving towards. I absolutely agree, and I hope we see that sooner rather than later. I do also want to mention that we did have another Karrion Kross Scarlett promo. This is a video package, good. And it continues to be just crazy. Like the way that they're building in Kross, it is going to be a new era within NXT. If I would, whoever in that winner takes all match next week between Adam Cole and Keith Lee, either way, time's up for and I would be very scared.
That's going to be the story of that match, is not only who wins that, but what happens immediately after. Because both of those guys have other people chasing after them too, plus Karrion Kross. So there could be a lot of fireworks, and I recognize that that's a 4th of July joke that's a week too late. But there could be a lot of fireworks.
Or just on time, actually, yeah. It's just on, yes, it's tick-tock.
Yeah.
Things are happening. It just gives me chills just thinking about it. Speaking of, I have to promo this segment, breathe some life, and I'm talking about the Santos Escobar promo that he did. He came out. Oh, I know. I literally wanted to message all of you to just be like, come on. Like, this happened more right before the main event. You had Santos Escobar coming out with El Legado de Fantasma, his faction, and just the way that he came out, still gold, still money. The entire entrance with the video behind the logo, the lighting, all of it, pure money. But the content of his promo, and I think we've talked about this before, and pretty much anyone when they talks about the challenges that any luchador has in not only doing a promo, but just the translation of the character, the style, the mannerisms, to an American audience. And I feel like Santos Escobar came out and just killed, having the concept of his promo, talking about being this new era of, and the commentary really backing that up. Why he got rid of the mask was he wants to have his own. He wants to have all of the credit that's due to him. He wants that notoriety, and also just this new evolution and how he is the future. And it really got me thinking about, is this part of the plan all along to not only revitalize him and produce him as a new character, but also just throw it on its head in NXT? Is that really what they're meant to do? Is this what it's all about? Brendan, if you don't mind going first, like what were your thoughts about the promo and what it means for Santos?
Well, I mean, I felt like he was in my head when he was talking about all of the stuff of the perception of the luchador and how they, when he said we are more than a mask, and he taught, how Lucha Libre is life, and how he wants to be the new face of Lucha Libre in NXT, which by extension means in America. I had chills and I was all about it. The fact is that, as we've talked about on this show with Lince Dorado, with each other, the WWE struggles with how to package luchadors in particular. And this felt like he or someone backstage, or he and someone backstage had a plan on how to do that, and it had because it had the kind of those real life elements to it. It had that same vibe as the famous CM Punk pipe bombs, where they're threading this reality in with the story, and it made me much more interested in finding out how that's gonna play out. And then you look at the rest of the NXT's lineup, sorry. I paused for a second there. You look at the rest of NXT's lineup, though. You've got, in addition to his faction, you've got Karrion Kross. You've got a couple of other luchadors. You have Swerve. You have all of this lucha talent that's there. And if he positions that and he transitions this new face of Lucha Libre to that, you put all of new life into all of those.
Yeah. And Dusty, I'm interested in your thoughts as well. I feel like we're in alignment all together, but I'm interested in your perspective about the promo.
Oh boy, I thought it was really good. The whole thing, I did not like the fans chanting "That is Lucha" when he was talking about how they were more than disguised with masks who did flips. That he was going to have a legacy that they could all be proud of. I loved that. That was so cool. And I liked it in contrast to somebody like Seth Rollins, who's all about himself, because it was all about us, not him. We're going to build a legacy. We will leave and I liked that. And I really think that to a lot of fans, especially casual fans, that's all Lucha Libre is. Littler guys with masks and flips and, topes and Hurricane Ranas. And that stuff is awesome, but there's so much Lucha Libre. And so I would love for him to get the chance to do that on a national stage. And I think he has the talent and the drive to make it happen. And if they can they've done a good job so far, but if they can keep tying in like his father and, that he was born into this, I really think that they can do something incredible. They're coming up with such good, solid stuff for the Legado del Fantasma, and they are going to be big stars. I think this is a sign they're going to be big in NXT, and then whatever they do next, these are going to be top guys, and I think we're going to see top guy work from them very soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe as early as next week.
Yeah, I was going to say just that. Stop reading my mind, Brendan. So after this promo, we had Drake Maverick come out, confront Santos Escobar, and Legado de Fantasma. The trio ended up just about to beat up Drake Maverick before Breezango came out, Tyler Breeze and Fandango, to help out Drake Maverick, and shortly after that, it was announced that we are having a 3-on-3 match next week on night 2 of the Great American Bash, and Legado de Fantasma versus Drake Maverick and Breezango. So that is a different element that NXT provided this week, is that unlike AEW, they didn't announce a lot of matches for night 2. A lot of that was built up from night 1. So a different strategy, and it seemed to pay off, I think, to be a little bit more excitement as far as Lucha Libre content coming out from NXT, even though AEW provided more actual Lucha Libre content. So two different ways of doing it, but I feel like we are still all the winners. Based off of what you know of Nick, real quick, what will you be watching next week? Are you going to be watching Fyter Fest or Great American Bash? Dusty, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I will probably start with Fyter Fest. I really want to see the Lucha Brothers with Blade and Butcher against Young Bucks and FTR, but I hope it's not on at the same time as Legado del Fantasma against Breezango with Drake Maverick.
That would be cool.
Because,
that would be
I know.
So cool.
Like,
don't put that out there. Now I feel like you're going to do it, Dusty. You know they listen to the show. I have the
putting that evil in the universe.
The tinfoil's on my head. They're going to do it. And what are we going to do? How are we? Like, I'm off my rocker. I apologize.
Yeah, those are the two big matches for me, obviously, as a Lucha fan, and I really hope that it plays out where I can see them both. But yeah, I'm excited to see, and I'm also excited to see the winner take all match and see how Karrion Kross reacts to that at the end of NXT. I think that'll be the main event, and that'll definitely be interesting. And he's somebody else I think is going to be a very big deal. He's got a great look, and he's going to be a huge star in WWE.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Brendan, what about you?
Well, so based on how they did this, to your point, and to this whole setup, AEW won on Lucha content this week, but NXT won the longer battle because they made me want to watch that show. I want to see what's going to happen with the NXT content next week. And as much as I want to see that 8-man event, if the two are up against each other, I'm watching the NXT event over the Lucha Bros match. So that's where I'm at. The storytelling drew me in on the NXT side. I think AEW is going to have a great product, and I'm really excited about it. The good news is that I don't think that they're going to be actually up against each other because, to your point, Dusty, I think the two belts match is going to be the main event, and I think the 8-man tag is going to be the main event on the other side. So
I do as well. I think that's the most likely scenario.
I think we're gonna So we won't have Lucha going head to head, most likely. Although we have put it into the universe, so Lord only knows.
Yes, I freaked out for a second, but I do agree. I think I'm gonna just breathe. Just lots of anxiety of something, but I will probably think the 8-man tag for Night 2 of Fyter Fest is really what I'm looking forward to the most for next week. I would say that my attention overall has been probably leaning more towards NXT again, though. I mean, AEW. I know we're running short on time, but we keep going back to so many random. I mean, that AEW Puppy Bowl equivalent, like, it's like they got it. I'm going to be flipping back and be like, when is this? I think it may be happening afterward, but the fact that there's these tease of a Puppy Bowl equivalent, I'm sure we'll get into that as a future topic. But
so I know we're short on time, but you have to explain the puppy concept to the listeners now, just in case.
That is true. So AEW posted media on Twitter, and apparently, for anyone who knows of the Puppy Bowl, Animal Planet, the Super Bowl equivalent of entertainment factor, but with dogs. So they have this big field, and they, not big, but just a field, and the puppies play, and it's so adorable. And AEW on Twitter last night that they had the video of these dogs getting in a wrestling and playing in this wrestling ring, and it was just so cute. And it sounds like they're going to be doing some wrestling Puppy Bowl equivalent. I don't know if it even has a proper name, but that may be airing next. I'm not sure if it's going to be during the show or after, but puppies in a wrestling ring, like, come on. It's like my favorite. That's literally my Instagram. My Instagram is like when I'm reading through things, it's wrestling and puppies.
Oh, good.
So they cornered the market. Well, we've evaluated AEW NXT this week, but we've got some more news to get into. Dusty is going to be leading us into this week in Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, this past Friday, the 26th on SmackDown, we got an incredible 8-man tag team match. Lucha House Party teamed with New Day against Cesaro, Nakamura, and Miz Morrison. Like, this is already an exciting start for Lucha fans, but it only gets better. Big E got in a ton of early offense on The Miz before tagging in Lince Dorado, and he used his strength to pick him up and throw him for a splash onto The Miz. It was amazing. Cesaro tagged in Lince, but tried to do a head scissors, but Cesaro was able to use his strength to hold Lince back. But Lince was able to kind of reverse it and leap out of it and land on his feet like a cat. I thought that was awesome. Lince just looked so incredible all night. Metalik tagged in and did a splash off of Lince's shoulders onto Cesaro, and then Bulldog Nakamura. They looked amazing together and worked so effortless team, and almost had a sixth sense with each other in the way they moved and did some of their like combination moves and tags. It was really good. Metalik hit a beautiful moonsault in the match. Lince hit a shooting star press so perfect that students need to be studying it, like they need to get the tape, slow motion, and study it. It was so perfect.
So good. And we even gave a shout out on, I went onto Lindsay's Instagram and tagged Dusty on it because he had posted pictures of it.
So good.
So good. We still to this day made you maybe shed a tear.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. Like, I loved it. That was the most exciting Lucha moment of the week for me. I love his shooting star press, my favorite. And, I mean, he also had a few other, he had a springboard stunner on the Miz that looked really good, a Hurricane Rana onto the floor to Morrison that was incredible. Metalik had a great finish where he walked the ropes and dropped the elbow on the Miz and got the pin. Lucha House Party got the win for their team. Metalik got the finish. Big deal. And it also sets up something further between Lucha House Party and Miz Morrison. And I'm all in for that because in the time he's been gone from WWE, John Morrison became Johnny Mundo. And he traveled the world doing some amazing lucha work. So this pairing is going to be really exciting for anybody that's a Libre fan to see Lucha House Party up against Miz Morrison. I think that we're going to get to see some of the Morrison we saw in Mexico and Lucha Underground, but never got to see in WWE before. And
so just real quick on that, since you brought it up, I can't remember right now. Did Morrison win a World Cup, or did he only participate in the final in the World Cup?
I honestly don't remember. I think he won.
So there we go.
My memory.
I know for sure that's up on Lucha. You and I can go watch that on Lucha Central. Fans, you can watch that too. But he was in the final match in the Libre World Cup, which is a huge deal. So if you guys were unaware of Morrison's Lucha connections, outside of Lucha Underground, he's done a bunch of stuff. And that's going to be a great match. Sorry, Dusty, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I mean, I love the discussion on it. Like, I am so excited to see him and his new Lucha style, and especially for WWE fans that may not have been aware of Lucha Underground or his work with AAA or even his work in Impact. He's not the same guy he was when he left, and the guy he is now is so much better. And I think that his work on SmackDown is going to be something that people get really excited about, and it'll be a surprise to everybody that's not a Lucha fan and hasn't seen him these last several years. But I think he's really going to impress us with his future work, and especially since we get to see the Lucha House Party, we haven't really got to see everything those guys are capable of. Metalik's work as Mascara Dorada is kind of legendary in Mexico.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think that he's going to be somebody that could, potentially grab that brass ring. I feel like Lince Dorado really impresses everybody every week and gets to do more and more interesting and impressive stuff every week. So I'm really excited to see SmackDown going forward. It definitely has the more lucha, like the strong lucha feel as a fan as compared to Raw. This past Monday, the 29th on Raw, we saw Angel Garza trying to use his unbridled charisma on a fairly new referee, Jessica Carr, before an interview with Charlie. Like he had a rose, he was chatting her up.
I love that. That was so great.
Oh, I did too. And it set up tension between Charlie and Zelina in the interview. The early interview started something between Andrade and Big Show. And after the commercial, Big Show comes out and he's looking for a match with Orton, but Idolo Andrade comes out with Garza and Zelina, and she cuts a promo on Show about how he's too old and he's going to get sent to the retirement bin. And Show kind of agrees to a match, and then Ric Flair shows up. And he cuts a promo on Big Show and kind of encourages Andrade and Angel to whoop up on Big Show. But just as we start to kind of see some action, the Viking Raiders run out to make the save for Big Show. And we cut to commercial, and that's when they kind of pulled the rug out from under us. Zelina is on commentary, but Angel and Andrade really weren't working together, having any momentum against the Viking Raiders. After some back and forth and some odd tension, Andrade left the ring, saying Angel didn't tag him fast enough, and he didn't want any of this. And he walks up the ramp and leaves, and Zelina leaves commentary to chase him up the ramp. We come back from commercial, and suddenly she's made everything fine. Zelina's back on commentary, Andrade's working with Angel as a team, and after some pretty impressive work, Garza gets the pin thanks to some teamwork on the outside. And then they're celebrating their win with Zelina backstage, and Ric Flair walks up and says they've never looked better, and he'd love to speak to them off camera privately, and they leave. And I had some hope here, because pairing anybody with Ric Flair seems like a pretty big deal, but we end up with Big Show versus Andrade and Angel in a handicap match. Big Show told Charlie before the match that he used to worship Ric Flair, but once he got into business, he realized that Rick was the dirtiest player in the game. And I guess that's foreshadowing as to how we were supposed to feel as fans. The match started, and neither man wanted to be the one to face Big Show, so Andrade got Garza to jump in, and he was immediately dominated by Big Show with some big echoing slaps to the chest. He gets thrown by Show. He tags in Andrade. He attempts a waist lock, and Andrade gets the slap before he rolls out. Show picks him up by his hair. Zelina looked pretty worried, but Andrade was finally able to tag Garza, and all of a sudden Garza gets his mojo back. He falls Show with a series of leg kick attacks and some big kicks and stomps, but then Andrade got cocky. He tags himself in and demands his moment. This is my moment. So Angel leaves, and he's yelling, "You can have your moment. You can have your moment." But Andrade didn't realize that Big Show had risen up kind of like a grizzly bear, and he just grabbed him for the choke slam and pinned him. The match I did not like. A tag team like Andrade and Garza should not be losing to a single guy like Big Show, but I didn't really feel like they got steamrolled. But at the same time, La Sombra has such an insane background in Mexico and Japan, and if WWE would just kind of acknowledge that, talk about his past work with CMLL and in Japan, it would be so much easier for casual fans to understand how amazing he can be and what a big deal he is. And then we had Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio, or a continuation at least. Seth came out, said he was going to issue an apology, but he mostly came out to recap last week while he held the WWE shop, Rey Mysterio fan mask. And he kind of continued to talk about how Rey isn't thinking clearly and can't see his place as sacrifice so that Seth moves to the next level. But I don't understand what level Seth hasn't reached in the WWE at this point. And so he finally offers his apology, but it's for what he's going to do to Rey when he gets his hands on him. They're bound by fate, and fate has made Seth the Messiah, made Rey the sacrifice, and his duty to tear Rey apart. And at this point, Rey shows up to apologize too, to apologize for Dominic for what he's done, to avenge his eye. And he says it in Spanish, so you know he means it. And Dominic forgives him, but says he cannot forgive Seth. Yeah, when it's in Spanish, you know it's serious. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
You know it's serious. Ya tú sabes, you know it's serious.
And Seth says that Rey might have Dominic, but he may not have taught him enough about how to be careful about what he wished for, and that if they stand in his way, he'll end Dominic's career before it ever began. And Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo kind of come out to defend Rey, and Seth and Humberto call each other cowards. Aleister Black says he needs some atonement from Seth, and then we have a tag team match. And this was a really good match, which wasn't much of a surprise given the incredible talent these 4 guys in the ring. There was a tremendous amount of back and forth. Black and Carrillo really got in a lot of great moves and a lot of offense. Humberto got an especially fine-looking 619 in on the match, and then he later got a near fall to almost win the match, but it just wasn't enough. Seth was able to hit the curb stomp and take Carrillo out to get the pin. Seth told Carrillo that if he wants to stand up for Ray, then he can stand in for Ray, and they attempted to kind of poke his eye out on the steps too, but he was able to fight Seth off and break free. But Murphy grabbed the top step and hit Carrillo, and this is way more devastating than I'm making it sound. The bong bell sound the steps made when they hit him just made you cringe with pain. And then they put the Rey Mysterio mask on Humberto and dragged him to steps before Seth hit another curb stomp on the steps. I mean, it was an intense and tension-filled segment. Like, this was the opposite of the tag team match. For as disappointing as the Angel and Andrade segment was, this was really promising. And Humberto Carrillo especially looked really strong tonight despite losing. And it's the closest I've seen someone give Seth a run for his money in a long time. Like, this was really an exciting match.
It definitely was. And, I mean, the big takeaway here is the luchadors were all over Raw. They dominated.
They were so
the
much
majority
lucha
of the
content.
And
but,
in agreement that Big Show,
yes.
luchador presence on Raw, Big Show for those are just my two.
And to your kind of point on the Angel Garza and all of that, the first positive note I had during the Angel Andrade point was that Andrade had a beautiful, awkward "I'm dating your daughter" smile when Ric Flair came out, and that was.
I kind of wondered if they were going to mention that, but they didn't. But I thought that was funny, and I wondered if that was going to be the connection. You know, he's like, "Well, I'm looking out for you because I'm looking out for Charlotte," and I thought maybe it would be something to really vault them and maybe it will yet, but I don't have much hope for the Ric Flair part of their storyline.
It's a very interesting turn of events. I feel bad that Ric Flair was, because I don't think that with everything going on in the world that was a thing that he needed to do. His career he doesn't need the ego boost of coming out in the middle of COVID to have a great career, and having him there and then adding him into that whole awkward segment made it even worse. Because if he'd come out and legitimately helped Andrade look like a next level star, I would have been like, cool, thank you for doing that. I really hope you don't get sick. But instead, they drug him out there and they put him in a very poorly segment.
Yeah, I just was so let down. I loved Ric Flair as a kid, and I was so excited to kind of see him with these guys, but we didn't get any good payoff from it, or even really any understanding of what he said to them backstage or what the advice or story was. So maybe there's going to be a continuing payoff on that.
I hope so. But
I hope so,
all in all, Raw looked for content, and then more, if you want highly authentic Lucha Libre, SmackDown sounds like your choice.
Yes, definitely. And then in other WWE NXT news, last Friday the 26th, El Legado was quietly let go by WWE. His page was taken down, and he has not been added to the alumni nor any other WWE page. Legado was accused of harassment and wrongdoing by several female wrestlers in Great Britain as part of the Speaking Out movement. He responded to those accusations before deleting his Twitter. Jack Gallagher was released the week before under very similar circumstances. WWE has yet to publicly acknowledge the release. However, it was reported as confirmed by Pro Wrestling Sheet, which seems to be WWE's official way of confirming rumors lately. And so that's as much as a confirmation as we're going to get right now, but he was released last week.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get any official confirmation for years to come. You're just like with many other people, they're just not going to talk about him forever. And this does bring us to a nice transition to another news article another story that's going on. speaking out has been trending for a while now. A number of things have happened in the American independent scene, and obviously the British scene has been just absolutely devastated by things that have come forward in speaking out. I don't want to make it sound like speaking out is negative. What they've done, what has come forward has absolutely devastated the scene, and people are rightfully outraged by it. And there has been a number of people that have noticed that Mexico has been oddly quiet, and only a couple people have really been willing to say anything on that. And there was a Facebook post recently. Eric from Lucha Central alluded to some of this stuff, and apparently Cubs fan of Lucha Blog has had a couple things to say. My understanding is that Dusty and Miranda, you both have more facts on this. If either of you, Miranda, do you have any information or thoughts on this?
Yeah, I can reference the post Facebook that has come out more recently, and I know Dusty has some info from actually a few years ago and how this ties together. A Facebook post from Quítate el Candado, or known as Take Off the Padlock, is a lucha Facebook group, and they posted last week how they allege to have some information on sexual harassment that's happened in Mexico. They allege that they actually have screenshots, and they've been contacted by several people who have wrestled in Mexico, and that they are wanting to help stop the harassment in Lucha Libre. They are advocates of change with the Lucha Libre community and encouraging anyone who feels that they have us to share to share it. But this was specific, I believe, to AAA, and someone in particular, referee Combate Salazar, was pointed out on this Facebook post by Quítate el Candado as allegedly harassing female luchadors and other behavior.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, he is for other fans to be aware, he is more than just a referee. He is part of he's part of the booking system and has a considerable amount of power to. So if this is true,
he decides the luchadors working each show, from what I understand, and especially the house.
Yeah, and so if this is true, that he has a considerable amount of influence on these people that he is potentially trying to influence. So Dusty, did you said you had some information as well from a few years back and some other things that might tie in.
It turns out Conan was talking about this far back as 2016. He was on a podcast in Mexico, and he outed Copetes as a serial sexual harasser. He said that he was one of the people to decide the luchadors working each show, and he specifically named Lady Maravilla and said that Copetes demanded sex to get booked more, and he told everything he knew, or she rather told everything she knew about it to Maricela Pena, and she said she would look into it, but only asked him, and he denied it. And Conan didn't believe it, saying that, he had stalked several women, including some women who had left over it, and that they had always just kind of turned a blind eye to it, and that, that this is just kind of the way things were in AAA, and that somebody needed to do something about it. And this was 4 years ago, when the original kind of, the first sort of movement started. And now here we are 4 years later, and as far as I know, he still has this position in AAA, and nothing has changed. And so it's time that people kind of announced all of that and brought it to the forefront right now. Because in Mexico itself, they say it's very difficult because of the culture for people to speak out. And we're able to provide a platform for that without causing any consternation amongst the people working for booking. So I think this is an important platform for us to announce something like this and try to help get that ball rolling for Mexico.
Absolutely. Again, we want to point out that these are allegations. We have not been able to dig up any facts other than that these accusations have been made. That does not mean that they are not true, and they should not be treated with any sort of importance. Every time someone comes forward with something, you should default to believe them until we can come to some sort of understanding if there was something else that might have happened. But based on this abuse of power that's a story in wrestling, there's very little reason to not straight up just believe somebody when they say this. And we want to support anybody coming forward that is going to have anything to say, and make it very plain that we will believe you and we will support what you have to say.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
I think we're going to leave that where it is for the time being. As Speak Out as moving forward and as a constantly evolving story, we will have more things to say as more information becomes available. And again, I will repeat my request. Please, if you feel the need to say something, this is the time. People are standing with you right now. So come to us, go to social media, wherever you feel comfortable, tell your story, get it out there. But I'm going to go from that into thanking our wonderful hosts at luchacentral.com. If you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's time to do it. luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives and all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of this, it's luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Thank you so much for that, Reed, Brendan, and thank you again to our host, luchacentral.com. And it's becoming a fan favorite this week in Lucha Libre history. Take it away, Dusty.
Now it's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in every day at luchacentral.com for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for more information and amazing Lucha Libre videos. This week I chose July the 5th, 2000. Lucha Libre AAA held the Triple Mania 8 at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan. And this was only the second Triple Mania held outside of Mexico, following Triple Mania 4A, which was held in Chicago. They split them out in those early years, and they'd do 2 or 3 shows, and so one of them was in Chicago. The main event of this show, however, featured an incredible 8-man Atomicos tag team match, which saw several AAA regulars team up with a bunch of Japanese wrestlers. The main event was the team of Octagon, Jushin Thunder Liger, Latin Lover, and Obrige against Cybernetico, Shima Nobunaga, Abismo Negro, and Electroshock. The rest of this AAA tour of Japan drew very low attendance figures, drawing only 409 fans in Nagoya and 507 fans in Kobe for the next 2 stops of the tour, and AAA just failed to gain the interest of Japanese fans, even after they brought in several well-known Japanese wrestlers. And they had plans to do further tours of Japan in 2001, but after they drew such low interest, they dropped the plans for regular tours, and they've only made brief tours of Japan since then, teaming up with the Japanese promotion, the tours, including 0-1 and Pro Wrestling Noah for their recent Star Battle tour. I especially recommend the Atomicos main event match. It's an incredibly rare instance of so many legendary talents in the ring, and it's a really cool appearance of Jushin Thunder Liger in a AAA ring. Lucha fans will probably be much more familiar seeing him with CMLL, including his incredible Rudo run in 2010. New Japan started a working relationship with them in 2008, so at least for the last 12 years, you've only seen him as CMLL. So it's really cool to see him in the AAA ring and with the AAA, the kind of difference in styles. And this is actually available on the little YouTube feed, so please go check this one out. You'll really enjoy it. Brendan, what did you choose this week? Or sorry.
Well, before I get into what I chose, I had a question for you on this. We're mentioning the low numbers that they were getting at Gate. Do you feel that they were just a little bit ahead of their time? Because in the modern product with Fantasticomania and other things, we are...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they were ahead of their time. I think AAA, in a way, has always been slightly ahead of its time. And, I see things that they tried and then somebody else, I mean, I think they're always kind of a front runner in an odd way, even if they don't realize it. And I think that something like this, even though it had low attendance, it's kind of like the Sex Pistols or the Replacements, like their first shows, there were only a handful of fans, but those handful of fans brought all their friends to the next one. And so there were a lot of people, and they built up a following. And I think if they had given it a chance and tried to build up that grassroots following, that it really would have paid off for them. I think they were just ahead of their time and got scared when it wasn't as popular as they thought. And rather than sticking with it, they kind of went home. And it's disappointing as a fan for what could have been.
Yeah, it's true.
Those attendance numbers you said, I was shocked.
I was too when I read those.
That.
Yeah, it's really crazy. 409 fans in Nagoya. Like, I can't imagine. And only 507, so 100 more in Kobe, is a major city, so it's really surprised me. But with the kind of show, I mean, they were on fire era, and so I think with the kind of shows AAA was putting on, that they could have really built up an amazing following of their own in Japan and kind of been their own thing, rather than a special feature once in a while for a Japanese company.
Oh, yeah. All right, so now I'm going to jump into it. I went this week with June 29th, 2007. This was another CMLL Grand Alternativa tournament. I'm still slaughtering that. I talked about this once before on This Week in Lucha Libre History. These are some unique events to CMLL. They do this every year. They've only skipped 2 years for a couple of reasons. There are only 2 people to have won this 3 times, and both of them were involved in this particular match. So this match had Mystico and La Sombra against Ultimo Guerrero and Euphoria. So you had Mystico as the veteran and La Sombra as the rookie. And for those of you keeping score of the many faces of these people, Mystico is now performing as Caristico, and La Sombra is the Andrade that we've been speaking about for the majority of the evening. And so this was his rookie. Mystico is one of the 2 people to have 3 wins. Ultimo Guerrero is the other to have 3, and he was the veteran on his team with Euphoria. This particular, you had, in addition to this being a Lucha Libre style of match where they're doing CMLL host this tournament all the time, and you usually get unique things, performances out of it and storytelling you won't see in other types of tournaments. This also was the beginning of La Sombra and Mystico having all the problems that made their feud famous throughout Mexico. Like, I didn't get to see the footage of this, but all of the interviews that I've seen since then, they always call back to that when they're talking about the beginning of their dislike for each other. And I believe La Sombra was still supposed to be a face in this at this point, and then he became more of an ingobernable as this whole feud shaped up.
He was only about 18 in this match, from what I understood. So a really young guy for such a spot, and so dynamic.
That is the B of this particular thing, is that most of the time you're getting these 18-year-olds in these giant positions, because even in the quarterfinals you're still getting huge exposure, and you're on the semi-main of a Arena Mexico card. So you're performing above and beyond your expectations as a very young performer, which is what makes the format so cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Especially since you kind of get to see the stars of tomorrow. They're sort of doing that now with Shota and John Moxley. He's kind of training him. He was his young lion in New Japan. And so it's a similar thing. They had some tag matches. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the pay-per-view, but I really like that style of pairing somebody with an older main event star to kind of guide them and give them advice.
Yeah, it really does. First off, you can the investment the company has in putting somebody into that position. You can know right away that by having La Sombra in the main event, that he's probably going to be somebody, and it's probably going to be very soon, because they will launch you right out of that tournament you win into a big career, which they did. I mean, look at where he's at today.
Yeah, exactly.
But you also get to see them kind of develop in that sink or swim environment, because they're put into a scene where the waters are deep, and they have to figure out how to perform in front of not just the fans but the television cameras. So anyway, I'm sorry, quick interruption there. Let's go ahead and talk to Miranda about what she got this week.
Yes, so this week I picked July 2nd, 2000, and this is when Christina Von Eerie and Alex Kosov won the Lucha Libre AAA Mixed Tag Team Championship after beating Fabi Apache and Aerostar. This was at a AAA live event at the Domo del Mar, Ciudad de Cali. And this was upon recommendation from Brendan, because my picks over the past few weeks have been very story-driven, and that's what I'm drawn to. And he said, man, there's some story behind this. And when I watched the match itself was a lot happening in this. And so in learning more about the backstory, and I'm really focusing more on the backstory of Christina and Fabi, because that was really what this match was about. In 2010, Christina Von Eerie made her debut. She ended up being part of a Rudo alliance, La Legión Extranjera, which is foreign, and she was part of that state, won the Mixed Tag Team Championships from Fabi and Aerostar, and Christina and Fabi were in actually a program together where the Legion and Fabi and Mari and Cynthia Moreno were all on, and the Legion were on another. And another thing why this attracted me is that this seemed to be kind of a continuance from a match I picked a few weeks ago with the Apuesta and Fabi, where Mari lost and cut her hair, and that came in to cut it instead. So this is kind of the aftermath of that, where Fabi, Mari, and Cynthia teamed together. And several months before that, there was a stipulation, not even a stipulation, it was something that happened where the Legion, which was Sexy Star, Rain, Christina Von Eerie, came together and started to fight Cynthia, Fabi, and Mari. And Mari, or they called the sisters maids, and that led to a match being booked between them where the Legion won, and Mari had to become a maid. So this was still also in the process, because the maid stipulation ended right before this match, but there was some tension between Christina, Mari, and Fabi that ended, that was part of the match and made it a challenge for Fabi concentration. She lost and pinned by Christina Von Eerie. So a lot of stuff happening in the match itself, but also the storyline. The match itself, I mean, Fabi and Alex, some of my favorite moments between them. Fabi hit hard, really winning this match, not caring, and thinking with Alex, some big hit on Fabi as well, but really good wrestling. Not as much interaction between Fabi and Christina as I would have liked, but overall, really entertaining, fairly straight to the point, and it continued a story on both sides.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. I was excited to see that on pop up. And to your point, it's a short match, but so much was going on. You had some good action. You had lots of great story.
Yeah, it's anytime I can get to a good story and learn more about the history of a match, I mean, that gets to me. And again, the match itself is not surprised on how short it actually was, but it also too shows why tag wrestling AAA in Lucha Libre is especially really good, because the women work just as hard as them, sometimes if not harder. So if you're a big fan of tag wrestling or even intergender wrestling, this is a really good match to watch.
Absolutely, and they develop unique storylines out of these mixed matches as well too. Lots more, like you were talking about previously, like the storyline with Billy Boy and the Apache sisters. So they're able to do unique storylines that I think are fantastic and, again, unique to Lucha in such a wonderful way.
Well, thank you, Dusty, for this week in Lucha Libre history. As he mentioned, you can find it this day at luchacentral.com. It has its own tab under the history tab. And let us know what were some of your favorite days. Now, a quick commercial from one of our partners.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Thank you, as always, to thechairshot.com. And now we're going to go over to Miranda, who has some more Impact stuff for us.
Yes, so a quick roundup with Impact Wrestling. This week it was announced that for Slammiversary, which will be happening on July 18th, there will be Knockout's #1 contenders gauntlet. So it's pretty much going to feature most of the Knockout division, including one of our favorites, Taya Valkyrie. And as Brendan pointed out on social media, if you have not seen Taya's, especially her Instagram, where she, I would say, did a redo, edited version of the picture that goes over, that announces this match, because and she is front and center. That is something.
Oh yeah.
She is front and center of this picture, but she did some editing. That she is starring match, which, you know what, she might as well could be. We don't know yet the order that's coming out. We may not know until the match actually happens. Taya is in this match, as well as her good friend. And other knockouts listed is Susie, Kylie Ray, Kimberly, we have Kira Hogan, Havoc, Nevaeh, Tasha Steeles, and Alicia. So that is all that's listed for this gauntlet match. And, yeah, I mean, it really does feel like
that's
a
stacked
to lose. Yeah, it's a stacked match.
And Taya has been having her own issues with Susie and Kylie Ray as well. So we can look forward to seeing some of that maybe play out during this gauntlet match as well.
And it was announced that we are going to see Taya and Rosemary next week. So if you are wanting to see Taya on sooner rather than later, check her out at Impact. Also, she is a true highlight of Impact. She is also in this storyline with Rosemary, where she, her right-hand man / slave boy, I'm not quite sure what the dynamic is between Taya and Johnny Bravo, but they're alluding to a possible romance between Johnny Bravo and Rose. However, it's not something that Taya is aware of, and he's too busy bossing around Johnny Bravo while Rosemary trying to get with Johnny Bravo. So, but Taya's friendship with Rosemary is as strong as ever. So we're going to see how that dynamic plays out next week, and also in this gauntlet, because, we could see, either Rosemary come first and Taya come out, or maybe Taya be in first and Rosemary come out. So who knows how their friendship is going to be impacted by that match. But also in big news, Impact Wrestling, they sent out a press release on the 29th that Impact Wrestling is expanding into 17 Latin American countries through Pluto TV Latin America platform. For those of you who have Pluto TV, do have a special Latin American platform that's available in 17 different countries, such as Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, El Salvador, Uruguay, Venezuela, and more. What this means is that Impact Wrestling is going to be on Pluto TV Latin America, furthering the reach throughout Latin America. We announced not too long ago that they are continuing a broadcast in Mexico, but now they're going to be even on more TVs throughout Latin America. Also, part of this announcement is that they're going to be producing special new and exclusive Spanish language content made specifically for Pluto Latin America. So this not only gives them a wider audience, but some exclusive content that hopefully us in the United States.
That's all exciting. I'm looking forward to that unique content.
Yeah, me too. I love Pluto TV. I mentioned it when we were discussing things earlier this week. They have a AAA channel that's amazing. The Impact channel is amazing. Like, you get to see old pay-per-views for free. Pluto is incredible. So I'm really excited to see what they come up with for Pluto, like their specialty product for it.
I especially just having a larger in Latin America. And like you mentioned, Dusty, how they already have a AAA channel. So for hopefully those who maybe already have access to other Lucha Libre content, they slide Impact Wrestling. And again, hopefully we get to see some of that Spanish language content as well. Because when you think about who's currently on the roster has that experience in Latin America, Taya Valkyrie is one of them. There are actually a whole lot that I can think of currently on the roster. But, I mean, again, as all of us being Taya fans, I think that's going to be great for us. But real quick, another person who has a big presence in Mexico and in Latin America, but someone we haven't seen lately, Daga. I know a lot of it is more surrounding the status of Tessa Blanchard, released by Impact last week, and stripped of the world champion. The title is now vacant. But one thing that I think a lot of people haven't been talking about is the status of Daga. At this time, we are unsure of what his particular status is with Impact, and we were all discussing, what are we going to happen, or thought, what's going to happen with Daga? So, especially now that Impact is going to be going into more Latin American countries, and they are going to put more Spanish language content. Where do you think Daga falls in? Brendan, I'll have you go first.
Well, so he becomes, with this announcement, he becomes kind of a hot free agent. But something we haven't mentioned, but was kind of alluded to, is that he's in a relationship with people that are not working well with Impact right now. So I don't know for sure if he wants to pursue a longer relationship with them, or this is also the kind of thing that happens in Mexico all the time. Houses get divided. Somebody gets a job at one place, and the other place then refuses to hire them. So who knows where that? He very well could just take his paycheck and continue to sit there in Mexico, and then make unique content for the Latin American stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of options for that. I feel like his best choice to stay with Impact, because he has a look and a style that goes well with them. He would, if he wants to try and crack an American audience, he would be up against some pretty stiff competition in either AEW or WWE. And as we discussed earlier, like, WWE famously mishandles that kind of opportunity, and he would very easily fall under that umbrella if he's not careful. I don't know. What do you think, Ted?
I think the same thing. I think that there's only so many spots for somebody like Daga in WWE, and we don't really need anybody else kind of muddying the waters and making things tougher for the handsome and charismatic guys like Andrade and Angel, because he would be in competition for that same spot. And so I think that even if he is upset with Impact right now, I think that Impact would probably be willing to overlook Tessa's issues with Impact to kind of keep Daga around for the Latin American content. But I could see at the same time where it wouldn't be worth it to them if he's really unhappy, and they would let him go. I think Mexico or somebody with a strong Mexican base is the way to go for him. And Impact having this new Latin American connection through Pluto TV and the specialized product for Latin America, I mean, he could really be star of this. And so I hope he stays with Impact. I think that's the best place for him. I think he has the most potential to become a star there. They're adding new people all the time. I've heard recently Gallows and Anderson may have signed with Impact. So I think that Impact is on a huge upswing, and that it could only behoove him to stay there and make his face seen there, because it's such a great way to introduce himself to the American audience. Impact kind of has a niche audience, and I think that if he could get over with those niche fans, the hardcore fans, that even if he did decide to do WWE or something later, he would be in an undeniable position rather than just another guy position. And right now, to the WWE community at large, they probably don't know Dogga's name. You know, he's in AAA. I believe he was on Lucha Underground. The avenues to watch those weren't as accessible to the average fan. I knew a lot of people that were into wrestling that had never seen Lucha Underground except for clips on SportsCenter. And so I think that something, especially like, again, these 17 countries with Pluto TV, I think that he could really benefit from stage that they are able to present him on compared to anybody else.
Yeah, it's very valid point brought as far as the Pluto TV. And one of the things I'm thinking of too is, especially talking about Chaos and other independent promotions, is that he probably would want to promote that would allow independent dates in Mexico. And that's a huge advantage of working Impact, is the fact that most talent do get that flexibility to book on the independent scene, whereas the bigger you go, the less flexibility you have. So if that is something he is still interested in doing, that is something that he also has to continue to weigh his options. So that will it will be very interesting to see, but something, of course, we will continue to keep an eye out. But also, any move that Tessa makes, I'm sure the speculation too about where Dogga goes will follow. Now,
definitely.
A special segment for this week's episode. I know we just finished the month, which was Pride Month, but I know Brendan has some really pride with social media and Lucha Libre over the past week.
Well, so Pride Day was being celebrated towards the end of the month, and so that meant a number of stories were coming out. More people were, so while people had been celebrating all month long, more people were focusing on that day to tell stories. I picked out a couple that I just felt were really kind of positive. There are some, there's a couple of stories more to the effect of, yes, Lucha Libre has had some positive impact, but still needs to do work. And that's, I support that position, but I really was enjoying the fact that there was so much emphasis on the positivity in general. We had Mamba coming forward, doing an interview and thanking all of the people that came before them, Cassandro, Pimpinella Escarlata, Rudy Reyna, saying that without those people being brave and pioneering what we call the Exotico and their presence so much a part of the Lucha Libre culture at this point, that they without that it would be so much harder to exist in public in the manner that the Mambo wants to. Among and any of the other openly gay or trans or anywhere on the spectrum wrestlers can do now, much easier in Mexico because now they are part of the show. To that point, I have to also go with there was a retelling of El Universal's telling a story about Belo Greco, who was near as we can tell, the first Exotico. And so that was interesting and neat to see that link popped up, and that to see kind of definitively where it started and read those origins was really neat. Miranda, I think you had some social media posts that you wanted to mention as well.
Not that I didn't want. It's just that I don't as much. I've actually been a little media recently, but I think that it was just very cool in general, though, to see throughout the month of June all of the stories, all of the posts of support. I know a lot of promotions and luchadors and wrestlers had special merchandise available in support of Pride. Republic had a special shirt available for Pride as well. So it was overall very that throughout the of June. And I do know what you're alluding to. So I do have some information talking about the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Way over my a special Pride episode of the Masked Men and Mayhem show with Sonny Kiss, I believe, a few weeks ago. So if you want to listen to that interview, it is available on all of the podcast streaming and at luchacentral.com. But it was a really good episode. And yeah, I mean, someone who's been featured on Lucha Underground, now at AEW, one of the more outspoken wrestlers within the LGBTQ community. Kiss, just a fantastic episode for listeners to listen to.
Excellent. And then last week we had some technical difficulties, so I'm going to introduce the segment here. Mission Pro Wrestling had made some announcements, and I wanted to revisit that discussion a little bit as kind of some good news and fun news. They opened their website up. You can now order. Mission Pro Wrestling is now allowing you to be your own booker. So this is your chance to prove that you are a 5-star promoter, and you can special order matches with wrestlers that are on the roster where you can try and write some of the spots. I mean, obviously they're going to discuss if this is safe or something that they want to do, but you can try. You can give it your best college try to make a match on there. I was really excited to see that was an option as well. Especially right now, that's a great way to do smaller, socially distant content that could be interesting to a larger crowd to have a match or two on there. I listened to a lot of what you guys said last week. I was I am very excited for this promotion. We all are Thunder Rosa fans. I believe Denise mentioned she was doing an interview elsewhere on the network this week. I don't remember which show off the top of my head, but I'm going to go on the network and find it.
Yeah, it is the Masked Mayhem Men podcast as well. So after you listen to the Sonny Kiss episode, you can jump on into their episode with Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, but I'm super excited by this promotion. I cannot say enough good things about Thunder Rosa as a person or this idea. I think that a fully female-fronted, managed, and operated promotion is an exciting idea in the business, and I hopefully that gives some women in the industry the comfort they need to really stretch their wings and become the performers that we all know as fans that they should be.
And the newsletter is up, so if you are interested in getting continuous news, you can sign up for the newsletter. Go to the website. Yes, it's still a lot to come. I think it's a fantastic idea of doing the special matches now because of the fact that, the promotions still are not able to run full shows. So that gives you a glimpse of some of the still activities that promoter can take in keeping the momentum going and still building a brand and building a product. So the website, www.midprowrestling.com. So if you are viewing the website and signing up for the newsletter, it is Mission Pro Wrestling. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have made it to the end of another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Thank you so much. You can find Lucha Central on the social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Lucha Central, on Twitter at the Lucha Central YouTube page, where there's lots of matches available right at your fingertips. And, of course, luchacentral.com is your home for Lucha news. Well, as far as where you can find us on social media, me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the hashtag Miranda on Instagram and on Facebook. Dusty, they can find you.
Yeah, I am at Dusty Murphy on Instagram and at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, can you let us know where our listeners can find you on?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. I am on Instagram. I mean, I haven't published anything. Miranda probably could tell you when the last time I published something was, but I can't.
Yeah.
And I'm on Twitter as well. I'm much more active on Twitter. If you can't tell, I spend a lot of time there. So if you want to get a hold of me, that's the best way. I'm usually around and respond fairly quick.
And don't forget that Sleep Podcast is available on all major forms of podcast streaming. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us comments. Let us know how we're doing. And that also means a new trio's name. We are still the unnamed trio of Lucha Libre podcasting. So let us know your thoughts, your ideas, on any names that we could adopt as our trio's name. You can leave that in the comments.
And I think we're going to have a prize for the winner of the trio's name. Yeah.
So another little peek behind the curtain here. We're talking about having a contest for naming the trios, but do not let that deter you from throwing out names now, because you'll
still be entered.
Potentially be retroactively entered.
We haven't decided when the contest starts, but when we find a good one, then that's when it's. So how would you know if you don't put out any names? The contest starts when we find a one. So this is the linear timeline we've been talking about all show. So I'm glad you guys have been able to be participating. Yes, thank you all again for Lucha Central Weekly podcast. We will be back next week with all of the news and updates, and we will preview the week ahead. I'm Miranda Morales, Dusty, and Brendan Barr.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Quítale el candado, pícale los ojos, jálalo del pelo y sácalo del ring. La arena hinchada de voz en voz, la gente loca de la emoción. La arena hinchada de voz en voz, la gente loca de la emoción. Y en el ring hinchaban los cuatro rudos, ídolos de la afición. La arena hinchada de voz en voz, la gente loca de la emoción. Y en el ring hinchaban los cuatro rudos, ídolos de la afición. El canto es cavernario, crucemos y el bulldog. El canto es cavernario, crucemos y el bulldog. Y la gente comenzaba a gritar, sirenas vestidas sin cesar. Métele la disco, métele la vuelta, la quebradora y el tirabuzón. Quítale el candado, pícale los ojos, jálalo del pelo, sácalo del ring. Métele la Wilson, métele la Nelson, la quebradora y el tirabuzón. Quítale el candado, pícale los ojos, jálalo del pelo y sácalo del ring.